Yeah, I think I would take it a step further and say if it didn't exist 100 years ago, you probably shouldn't be eating it. Because we could make the case there are some foods that have been developed, natural foods over the last 6,000 years or so that, 1,000 years or so that are still relatively healthy for us. But the stuff that we've put in food lately just blows me away. And I heard recently about how our cereal companies in this country, and again, I won't name any names like you. I've named names before on this podcast, but and basically you can search any big, product producer, producer of, fast box cereal, that the products that they make in the U.S. and ship to Canada are vastly different than the ones that they retain here to feed our kids. And that's okay with our government and the powers that be, that it's okay that, the FDA says that they're generally safe for consumption. So because they're generally safe, it's okay. But a country that says we won't use those products gets that made for them. Well, why not just make what other countries think is healthy for our people? Do we need to add all these extra chemicals?
I hate to use the word conspiracy, because it's become a cliche. Every conspiracy comes true. It just takes 9 months. But having my own personal experience with that, as I mentioned, in my 30s, I became lactose intolerant, still am to this day. But I can tell you, in fact, I've also lost my ability to digest alcohol, lost my ability to consume cannabis. We can talk about cannabis too, and that's a whole separate thing. But last year, on the occasion of my 30th wedding anniversary, we took a trip to Italy, and you've heard these stories. And while we were in Italy, I thought, well, let's test this food system because I've heard that it's different. And so we're there for 3 weeks, and I sampled pizza, cheese pizza, not vegan cheese pizza, real cheese pizza. I love vegan cheese pizza. I think it's great. But real pizza, gelato, and all the things. And for 3 weeks, I had pizza nearly every day, gelato nearly every day, and anything I wanted nearly every other day. And I'm here to tell you I had zero adverse impact. Zero. It was perfectly fine. So, and I'm not a scientist. I can't draw any hard conclusions from this, but I'm here to testify that our food systems are different. Cheese in this country is not the same as cheese in Europe. So when people say they're lactose intolerant, are they really lactose intolerant? Or are they just American cheese intolerant, American dairy intolerant? And then on that subject, because I went to Michigan State University, and I'll name that name, because that's where I met my wife, and I thank them for that. But Michigan State University, land-grant university, well known for agriculture, right? And God bless our scientists, they're doing the Lord's work. But not to call them out, because everyone has seen this unfold. In this country, we set a goal decades ago to feed the world. We predicted that population explosion would lead to starvation. And so we set a goal to develop agricultural systems that would be able to produce the food that would, of course, enable us to feed a growing population across the world. And we accomplished the goal, mission accomplished. And I use that term in the vernacular on purpose. We fed the world. Congratulations, pat ourselves on the back, right? But how did we do that? I think in the coming years, and this has already come out, and we're going to see more of it, what we focused on were grains and vegetables and such that were drought resistant, insect resistant, and fast growing, among other things. But I'll ask the question, because I don't know if we're really being serious about this. I don't know if this question has been asked often enough. How much consideration did we give to whether or not that agricultural product could be digested by the human body? We were concerned about insects. We were concerned about drought. We were concerned about how fast it would grow. But how much consideration was given to whether or not our bodies would be able to digest that food product? And I use this analogy all the time. Because we've seen the data has already started to come in, organic vegetables and fruits and all these things, and that's a whole thing all to itself. But I pose this question to folks all the time. Are we approaching a time in our history where that red, ripe tomato at the grocery store will have less nutritional content than that bag of potato chips. And I'm dead serious about it. And how much consideration are we given to the nutritional content? Whether we can digest it is one question. Whether it has any nutritional content is a separate question. Are we given serious consideration to that question? And then coming full circle to workplace wellness. That's important because guess what? Most, we have an aging population spending more and more time at work, which is great. 70 is the new 50. And it's when we're at work that we're breaking all the rules. It's all well and good. If you're able to work from home, right, you have the benefits and the burden of making your own choices. And, we're all guilty of this. And I have cookies in the cupboard, I promise you. But when you're working from home, you make your own food choices. When you're working in an office, it's more difficult to make your own food choices. You got those micro markets, you got that vending machine, you have a 15-minute break, a 30-minute lunch, a 15-minute break, depending on what kind of a deal you have. Maybe you get an hour break. Maybe you're lucky enough to get an hour break. But your office, if you're right downtown, your options in the local area are expensive. If you're in a remote location, you might be in what's called a food desert, and you have limited choices. I think that corporations are not giving enough credence to it. It's beginning, but it's only just beginning. So it's all culture, right? I think organizations are not given enough consideration to providing options to their team members to be able to make reasonable choices as respect to nutrition, health, and wellness in the workplace, where we're spending the bulk of our days. So it's going to become painfully. The good news is, and we've chatted before, is health insurance companies are getting involved. And we will predict based on data we've received. My clients work in some of these areas. We will predict, because I'm happy to say this on the record, the only thing health insurance companies like doing more than healing people, which they do, they play a role, is raising rates, because they're for-profit enterprises. God bless them. And they've recognized, and I want them to hear this. I think this is a good thing, as controversial as it might be. They recognize that if a given corporation is not providing reasonable options for their team members to make reasonable choices when it comes to nutrition in the workplace, health and wellness in the workplace, the health insurance companies of those who are supporting those corporations may consider raising their rates, because that population of employees are going to obviously over time experience higher costs if they're making poor choices, if they're not provided the options to make better choices. And as we talked about before, this might be like one of the fewest examples in history of the for-profit capitalist model being able to influence actually authentically, holistically good choices for health and wellness in the workplace in any regard. It'd be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense that the insurance industry would be interested in keeping us well, because that's how they make money. I have no problem with paying a reasonable amount to an insurance company to cover the unlikely scenario that I get sick with something that's outside of my control. That's fine, because that's just protection, and that's what the insurance companies are doing. But if we expect the insurance companies to not raise our rates as we live increasingly unhealthy lifestyles,
yes,
then we're either stupid or, we're stupid.
Yes.
There's just no other ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, we have to understand that insurance companies are in the position of trying to not have to pay out for us being unhealthy.
Yes.
And if they can help us be healthy, and we make the steps ourselves to be unhealthy, insurance costs are going to be less. They're still making money because they're not having to pay out as much, yes. And we're healthy. It's a win-win.
Oh, yes. And as we age, our workforce is getting older, these issues are going to become even more pertinent, because as we get older, we got to make better nutrition choices in the workplace or at home. And let's talk about AI for a minute. I tell people, the expression I use is, thanks to the wonders of agile development, our technology does not seem to be getting better. Fear not, here comes AI. I'm sure nothing can go wrong. And my wife doesn't like AI because, as she suggests, no Hollywood movie ever ended well. But AI is here. Can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Can't put the horse back in the barn. Here it is. Something that we're not considering. And I believe there's going to be a war for talent because while AI may, Microsoft, as they laid off a bunch of people, so they're in the news, right? And AI is certainly impacting their business. But is that what this is really all about? AI can perform wonderful tasks, but AI is derivative by definition. And as I like to say, AI will never feed the soul. It doesn't have the ability to. It's derivative. It's based on what's happened before. It's not original. It can create art, but not. I don't believe it's going to create the art that will inspire. But AI does not replace, as suggested, art. Going back to the beginning of our conversation, the artists that were always intended to inspire us, and yet every single one of us has gifts. Right? If we are so fortunate as to discover those gifts during our lives, it is then our obligation to share them with the world. But I believe, speaking from a biased perspective, people in our generations, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, have a tremendous contribution to make to our culture going forward, and obligation, I might add, because we screwed the world up. We got to fix it before we hand it off to the next generation, if we're able to. And this goes back to nutrition. If we still have if we have been a steward of our neuroplasticity, right, the ability to think, right, we have a tremendous amount of a tremendous contribution that we can make. We owe it to the generations of our children and our grandchildren to get uncomfortable, I tell people, get uncomfortable, stay uncomfortable, and grow. And leverage AI. These organizations, if they have not already, will soon understand that if you find senior executives, seniors, right, more experienced workers who understand perhaps a little more perspective than younger generations, how to steward those tools, those wonderful AI tools, right? Because they have to be stewarded, they have to be curated, they have to be shepherded, right? You can't let them run. I use a lot of AI tools. I don't automate them because we're not there yet, right? But I believe folks in our older generations have a tremendous opportunity to serve in those roles, to serve as the Jedi, so to speak, to use this Star Wars analogy, that can help to leverage the best of what these AI tools have to offer, right? So in our generation, let's get uncomfortable and dive in, because we owe it to those young generations to help fix what it is that we're handing off to them. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity. So to go back to the nutrition aspect of this, if these organizations don't understand that it's important to create a culture that respects their seniors who have all that experience, all that very critical perspective, right? To be able to leverage the tools that are now being released into the world, those organizations will not survive. AI, completely transformative, more transformative than the internet, to be sure, would not have been possible without the internet, but now here it is. And it is a technology that will absolutely have the power to end every Fortune 500 company, no exceptions, if those organizations do not adapt. That's how powerful it is. And so if you got the sales pitch, because I'm a marketing person, I think our generations, along with of course the younger generations that can contribute to this, but particularly our generations, have the best chance of helping this world into that next phase. So there I am, gratuitously in a self-serving manner, supporting our seniors, of which I am one, because I get those AARP mailings just like you do.
Yeah, it's getting pretty early.
Yes.
Yeah, but I don't see enough on AARP to really convince me that they're that interested in me aging well. It's interesting. You've mentioned kind of the corporate culture, and I grew up. My dad was a management consultant, and so corporate culture I heard continuously. But it just kind of struck me that when we talk corporate culture, we don't hear wellness really come up in there. It's much more of the culture for building a profit, not the culture for building kind of a better workplace, a better work environment. And there's a certain level of that, but it's never from the aspect of wellness as, what we label as our SPIES model, the spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social. It's if it's going to drive the profits, only if it's going to drive productivity. It's not concerned with the health and welfare of the employee or of the public.
Unfortunately true. But which has been the case for quite some time. I believe I'm going to predict that there's a reckoning coming. One of the things that the internet has done, of course, is release it's a freedom of information platform, right? Now everybody knows everything all the time, which is not a great thing in some cases. But there are no secrets, right? Because the information's out there. And kids, the internet is forever, so be careful what you post. When it comes to our corporations, right, the bad actors among us, for those that don't place value on culture, I believe there's going to be a reckoning. There was shouldn't bring it up, but there was a website a long time ago, I don't think it exists anymore, called ftcompany.com. And that's where people went to dish on organizations that acted badly. And it was a tremendous resource for folks who wanted dirt on corporations that they were applying for jobs at, which is a very controversial subject. But in today's world, with the internet and social media, which is its own thing, social media is performing much the same function, where corporations who act badly are getting quite a lot of publicity. And as a marketing guy, again, the old adage, all PR is good PR, is not as true as it used to be, as many organizations have realized as they've made mistakes, which we won't name. But so I believe there's a reckoning coming where organizations are going to start paying a higher price for acting badly. During the COVID outbreak, I believe, for many of the horrible things that happened, but there were a few good things that did accidentally occur, perhaps. We, I think, became much more in touch with the causes that we cared about. We were exposed, reminded of our own mortality, and we bared witness to the humanity that's all around us. So much like what happened during previous world wars, we were reminded, tragically. And I don't think folks are going to tolerate bad actors as they are exposed. And again, with the power of AI, it's going to be possible to stand up and compete with big organizations with very limited resources. You'll be able to compete with very limited resources. And so the bad actors will be punished, which is a good thing. They call it creative destruction for a reason, because when the forest burns in the years that come, growth is what sprouts up. And that's not a great analogy. But you have to make way for what is yet to come. And so there are organizations that will not adapt; they will die. And there are certainly new organizations that will emerge to take their place, which hopefully, as they witness all these events occurring, they will behave better. They will, and maybe a better way to say that is they will recognize that it is the role of any enterprise, as I like to say, to help their team members, their valuable team members, who your interface to the customer is that employee. You want happy customers? Do we really need to talk about whether it's possible to have a happy customer if you don't have a happy employee? Do we need to have that conversation? So hopefully these organizations will recognize that if you don't build a culture, maintain a culture that allows your employees to become their best selves, they're going to move on. We've seen examples. My clients have seen examples of best places to work kind of organizations where, speaking of nutrition, health, and wellness in the workplace, we've seen examples of best places to work kind of companies, not calling out any in particular, where when it's time to have lunch, there's the microwave or there's the door. I go wander into and my audience hears this all the time, go wander into the fast food wilderness. Burger, fry, soda pop, food coma at 3 p.m., go to the snacks, energy drinks, garbage, and the cycle repeats. And I think that's going to come to an end in some short order, because AI is going to level the playing field between the brands that think that they are invulnerable to this competition.
That kind of brings us to the topic of hot logic.
Oh, I love that topic.
How does a simple shift like changing how we heat our meals make a difference in the workplace?
It's something that I'm not ashamed to say. I talk a lot about that subject. The folks at Hot Logic are family friends. I got involved in that organization years and years ago, and I'm involved today not because it's a great product. It is a great product, but as my audience knows, I'm 100% cause oriented. I don't believe in doing anything that doesn't support a cause, right? A good cause. And of course, the Hot Logic ties directly to nutrition in the workplace, because when you're in an office working day by day, right, working hard, it's nice to enjoy a hot meal. from time to time. And this microwave thing, microwaves, I tell people, a microwave is kind of like your ex-wife. You hate her and love her at the same time. We're hopelessly addicted to this technology. But it irradiates the food, burnt edges, cold centers, standing on line, waiting behind Sally, behind Sue, because Tom's got a frozen lasagna, and you burn up 20 minutes of your break just waiting to get the chance to use the appliance, which is a community petri dish, which nobody cleans. And who wants to? It smells and it's loud and it's terrible. It's really extraordinary to think, and again, going back to culture writ large, that this appliance has infiltrated every facet of our lives. We live microwave lives. We want everything now. Yesterday would be better. But to be able to have the opportunity to work for an organization, which is of course a small family-owned Christian organization based in West Michigan, made in Michigan, right, made in USA, for an organization, right, that represents all these values in support of a cause, right? Nutrition, health, wellness is at the core of everything they do. Is a labor of love, absolutely. But speaking directly to the question, and I can talk about the HotLogic's clients because they're clients. Walmart's their largest client. This is a product that is in their master spec. Every floor of every building in the company headquarters, every distribution center in the country, and rolling them out to the stores this year. Walmart has standardized on this platform. Why? Why is Walmart tearing out their microwaves and installing the HotLogic product? Because they recognize that health and wellness is important? Sure, we'll check those boxes. But the honest truth is they recognize the opportunity that it provides for productivity in the workplace. It's, again, sometimes capitalism makes good decisions. Being able to provide your valued team members the option of a hot meal that's cooked slowly, naturally, fully automatic, AI, the whole thing. Being able to give them that option, not have to wander into the fast food desert, not having to pay expensive delivery, not having to stand online waiting for that irradiation device, contributes to productivity, contributes to the bottom line. It's extraordinary. Right? In addition to the health and wellness of cooking slowly at low temperature, you'll never burn the roof of your mouth again. I'm a real pitch man when it comes to this product, but it's an absolute labor of love that I've enjoyed for years. So, but at the same time, it's still one of America's best kept secrets. As we evolve the brand, so to speak, and join in with so many in this technology tidal wave of AI. The first, you find the product at AIoven.com. It'll be interesting to see how our culture continues to evolve to accept products like this that are able, right, that finally provide, particularly in the workplace, the ability to deliver nutrition, health, wellness, right in the workplace. So one might say we're on the journey. The world's largest private corporation is our biggest customer, but we haven't arrived yet. I won't be satisfied until there's a HotLogic in every office in America. Keep the microwave. You got to zap a cup of coffee from time to time. That's fine. But can we please stop irradiating our food? Can we? I got on my soapbox there for a minute. I apologize.
That's okay. I invited you to be on the soapbox, so we're good.